So you look at ancient Israel, it's this unique model.
Yeah.
And so if you can imagine power as a line with one side total government and the other side no government. Total government, you get a king, he rules through fear. You do what he says or he kills you. The other side is no government. That would be anarchy. No government unless each person is taught the law. It was like everybody downloads a behavioral app on their iPhone. Instead of a GPS telling you where to turn, tells you how to act. Be nice to that person. Don't steal that. Right? And then the Levites are the computer geeks that help you to download the app. All right, press this button, memorize this verse, right? Yeah. And so what Israel was doing was counter human nature. It's like each kid is born with this selfishness, and they would, if you ever imagine every computer you buy is preloaded with a virus, you immediately take it over to the Geek Squad desk and clean this virus off. Every kid is born preloaded with the virus of selfishness, and the Israelites would take him to the Levite and say, recode this kid. You know? But the question is, why would you follow? What would cause you to follow an internal moral? To deny yourself yielding to a temptation? What would cause you to be able to say, no, I'm not going to yield to that? Ancient Israel introduced the key ingredient. There is a God who's watching everyone. He wants you to be fair, and he's going to hold you accountable in the future.
So there wasn't real indication of consequence from higher authority before Israel came in?
No, before it was fear of God. I mean, fear of the Pharaoh. Fear of the king, fear of the sultan.
So more fear of humans as opposed to divine authority. The Egyptian gods, there wasn't a sense of sin against those gods. It was more of
they were capricious gods.
Yeah,
and you'd constantly be offending them, and you didn't know what you did to offend them, and so you would give sacrifices, and it was all the superstition. But it wasn't the law. Cause and effect.
Okay, there wasn't a consistency.
You never had a personal relationship with Ra, the sun god, or something like that. It was always distant fear. In Israel, each person had this individual relationship with God. They were taught God's law, and even if nobody was around and they had the opportunity to steal, and they know they could get away with it, and then they would think, God is watching me. He wants me to be fair. He's going to hold me accountable. Maybe I should hesitate stealing. And so that creates something in your head called a conscience.
Yeah, integrity too, yeah.
And so you take the power of the king, you separate it into the hands of the people. It's chaos unless the people have been taught the law, but what motivates them to follow the law is this God of the Bible. Now, to your question, it only works with the God of the Bible. An Islamic Allah God says there's an infidel woman there, nobody's around, you can rape her, it's okay. You can lie to this infidel, steal from that infidel. Mm-hmm. Right? The other cultures, like in the Hindu, that's a Dalit, an untouchable in the lowest caste. You can treat them like trash. And this other, and so they didn't have the concept that everyone's equal. And that God wants to treat each person because there's no respecter of persons. And so Israel's system worked for 400 years until the priests stopped teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's three stories. One is Eli, the high priest. His own sons are sleeping with women in the very tent of meeting. Here's the tent with the Ark of the Covenant in it, and they're sleeping with women. He's not teaching the law to his own kids. Another story, a Levite with a silver graven image in the house of a guy named Micah, and the tribe of Dan comes along and steals the graven image and tells his priest, come along with us. You can be a priest to our whole tribe. And he goes along with him, and you're scratching your head thinking, what's this Levite doing with the silver graven image? Isn't that like one of the commandments? You're not supposed to have graven images. It shows that the Levites weren't following the law, much less teaching it. And then the last terrible story is a Levite with a concubine. The law says the Levite is to marry a virgin of his own tribe. Here he is, he's with a woman he's not even married to. And they're traveling, they're at a house surrounded by sodomites. Something about that behavior that appears at the very last stages of a people ruling themselves. This casting off of internal restraints. And they bang on the door, the poor girl gets raped and dies, and by the time you're grossed out, you read this line, every man did that which was right in their own eyes. Why? Because the priests had stopped teaching them what was right in the Lord's eyes. They lost the fear of God. They forgot the law. All they had left was their selfish human passions. And it's like taking a bobber off a fishing line. The lead weight hits the bottom of the lake. They begin to rob and steal and kill, and all the sexual immorality. It turns into chaos. And then finally the people go to Samuel the prophet. And they say, this self-government system's not working anymore. We want to be like all the other countries. We want a king. And Samuel cries, and the Lord tells him, they did not reject you. They rejected me.
Yeah. But even then, it's like the self-government isn't working. It's like you weren't self-governing.
You weren't doing it.
You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of that cry today of people when like a tragedy happens. I'm kind of just equating it. Mm-hmm. You know, we were down in Parkland. I lived like an hour from the Parkland shooting that happened last year, I believe it was. And a friend of mine called me. He's a new Christian, and he had said, Massey, you know, you gotta answer this, man. I hope you have an answer for this. You know, if God is so good, like y'all claim, like why does he allow these things to happen? I was like, you know, it's funny. We put God on the chopping block per se. We put him as the judge, but we never question why he gave a law. You know what I mean? We always put him as the reasons of doing bad, but we don't ever author him as the reasons of being good. And I said, so if you say that God allowed it, right, then what did God say to prevent it? That's what we're not following, right? So we're putting God on the chopping block when he's saying to us, it's you that's committed this wickedness. You're the ones that have allowed the Ten Commandments not being taught in public schools, which they used to be, which I still find hilarious that people would say, you know, we shouldn't have 10 Commandments in public schools. But it's like for 200 years we were doing it. Either our founders were stupid and they didn't understand separation of church and state, or they actually knew that if we taught the law, like the way, who was it? Boy, I lost it already. Webster. Noah Webster would talk about if we don't have the Bible, it's basically we're going to turn into a despotic nation, you know? Yeah. And it wasn't just him that said that. It was John Jay. It was Benjamin Rush. It was all these guys. And there was something about the law of God that it was just like they knew without internal restraints, this government's going to be basically what Daniel Webster said. There will be anarchy throughout the world.